February 16th, 2023. This is the 2000 tick chart of the S&P 500 E-mini. This is on the Thinkorswim platform. This is how the chart looked today. I took a total of 7 trades today, and I'm ending up red. I kind of overtraded, but there seems like I couldn't get on the right side of some of these trades, and it just stopped me out a few times. So this is what the chart looked like today. Sold off in the morning, kind of consolidated, rallied, consolidated again, another stair-step consolidation, and then finally a sell-off. So this is how my chart looked like today. There's all my trades. I lost on 6 of them and only got 1. So that's a little unfortunate. I'll go through all the trades. You can go to the bottom where the description is, where the timestamps of in the video where I took my trades and points of interest, as well as where in the actual day the trade took place. Everything is in Pacific Standard Time. There was actually a couple of catalysts today, which was, let's see, it was the core PPI and manufacturing index, as well as the unemployment claims. So nothing too exciting happened when those released. It happened around 5:30, and the market had already been selling off since then. So let's go into the trades. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because I don't want the video to be too long. So in the beginning, in the pre-market, I kind of drew this trend line just to see overall looks like the trend is going bearish. And I did have this established as my top and bottom of my trading range, just to see if it's actually going to be bearish, but bounce off these two extremes. And as you'll see, it kind of did an M formation at the end of the day, or after the end of the day. And so right here, I see my possible first trade right around 637. Sorry. I saw as a first high, first entry long, second entry long. This is a pretty decent signal bar. It's closing at the high. There's enough room to the EMA. And at this time, I didn't really have this trading range established, so I wasn't sure if I would take that trade. I'd let it go. Prices continue. Now I see another possible entry. Now I do have this line from this trend channel trading range. I actually drew it like this in the beginning, and then I dragged it down, and it kind of encompassed this bigger one right here, this bigger trading range. And I saw a new low, first entry short. Well, actually, first entry short here, and then this is setting up for a possible second entry. Turns out it would have worked, but it would have been a little bit choppy, and it's kind of close to the EMA, which I wasn't too keen on, so I left it alone. Prices continue moving. If you saw this as a second entry short, then you would have seen this as possibly a lower high, but it's right going into the EMA, so that's hard to take a trade. I've been aggressive. And then here I do see a second entry long if you count this as a new high. So it'd be first entry long, second entry long. It's decent signal bar, but it's also in the middle of this bigger trading range. The smaller one I drew a little bit later, but in the end, it's kind of with the EMA just acting pretty flat. It would have been risky to take. It's also, in this stage of the game, counter trend because the overall market sentiment has been selling off since the beginning. So I left it alone. And then you do see a failed second entry short, but this is coming one right after the other, which is telling you there's a lot of entries potentially, but there's also a lot of chop. It's not making any big runs because it'd be like second entry short that failed. It's the first entry short, second entry short. Once it hit one tick below, it's a second entry short, but when it goes one tick above, becomes a failed second entry short. So to go long is a little risky because you're going to run up to the top of this. On top of that, look at all these possible entries that came up. I mean, you could have changed your bias really quickly, but I'm not that quick to see it and take it in real time. So it turns out it would have worked, but I was not on that trade. Then you see another potential hidden second entry long because you could say there's a new high, first entry long, and then this would be setting up for a second entry long. Turns out it would have worked. And this is actually where I took my first trade. When I saw this second entry long that was hidden, I missed the setup. And then I saw that close pretty strong here. And that's where I took my first trade. And now I should have let it go once I missed my entry because the bus is left. I shouldn't have chased after it, but I did. And I put my entry actually one tick above this 6 touches. So I got filled, and then immediately it looks like it's going to come back, and it does. It stops me out. So that was my first trade of the day. It's red, where that arrow is. Prices continue chopping, and even though there was a lot of price action today, I didn't see that many setups that were easy. And the setups I did take, they kind of faked me out, which was a little bit discouraging. So this is my second entry, second trade. I see a new low, I see a first entry short, and I get ready for a second entry short right here. So second entry short triggers because I take it. I'm a little early. The candle closed bearish, and I thought, okay, it's below the EMA, looks pretty good. I take it, and then it breaks right back up. And I thought it was going to break back into this trading channel, but it fills me and immediately takes me out. So that was also kind of discouraging. So it's 2 red trades now. Prices continue chopping. I don't see any really good clean setups on my chart. If you're running a different platform, you might see a better setup, but I certainly didn't. Prices continue moving up. Comes back to the EMA. At this point, I set up this trend line, at least this bottom one touching, and this top one is actually a little bit lower at the time. It was closer to here, and then later I drag it up higher. Prices continue moving upwards, coming back. So now I see a potential new high, touches the top of this trend channel, because remember I had it lower before, and I thought this might have been an overshoot, but it came back, respected the bottom, and in a second overshoot, I didn't quite like that, so I actually dragged it back up to where it was. And I said, okay, it's closing above the EMA. I'm going to get ready for a second entry long. So I take an entry 1 tick above, and I get filled. My runner doesn't really go anywhere. It kind of gets, stopped out break even. So that was fine. And that's my first green trade. So I thought, okay, 2 red, 1 green. I might be able to recover from this. So it touches, it confirms the bottom of this by a third touch. Goes back up. I'm not doing anything yet. I don't see a good entry. You could claim there's like hidden second entries. If you said there's a second entry short and then another second entry short and a failure, you could consider it that way, but I didn't like it at this point. I wanted more deliberate, clean setups. Prices continue moving upwards. I don't see any trades that I like. EMA is being respected. This trend channel is now confirmed 4 times, so I'm feeling pretty confident playing off of this trading channel. And I thought, okay, if it comes back, I'm going to take a trade. And so I do. I see a new short. I see a new low, first entry short, second entry short. And I thought, okay, EMA is going to hold. It's held before. It's coming against this bottom of the trend channel. Had it touched, it would have been a better entry, but I saw a failure here. So I took it 1 tick above right here. And I thought, okay, this is great. It's going to go long. And immediately, right here, it stops me out. And that was also discouraging. So it's like 3rd red trade out of 4. So this isn't looking good. Prices continue moving. I'm a little kind of thrown for a loop now because everything looked like it should have happened correctly. But in hindsight, it could have been like a first entry long, second entry long, then a failed second entry long, and then immediately comes back and recovers. So that was definitely confusing. I was kind of discouraged that that happened. So then prices continue moving. I'm trying to be more cautious, and I see this second entry short. I see a new low, first entry short, second entry short. Now, it's also breaking out of this trend trading channel. This has already recovered close to 50% of the move of the high from here. From this high to this low, it's already recovered 50%. And so in hindsight, I don't think I should have taken this trade, but at the time I thought, well, it closed below the EMA. It's probably going to reverse now because it tried to make 2 pushes up, 1 push up, 2 pushes up after breaking out of this trend channel. But I was definitely early because I didn't think it through. Because even though EMA looks like here, it's trying to keep prices down. And I'm going to take it all the way to probably here, but right here, there's really not that much room to move. So to take a short that early, it ended up getting stopped out. So my stop was up here and my entry was down here. Because I thought, oh, this is a pretty decent trade. Put the entry here. I get filled. It stops short of getting me filled. It's kind of like a 4 tick failure because you want at least 5 ticks or more to get at least 1 point, but it only goes to 4 ticks. If it ticked 1 more below, it might have filled me because my stop was pretty much, or my limit to exit was right there, and then it goes up and takes me out. It ticks right 1 tick above this candle. So another red trade, then I see a potential second entry long there, but I don't like it because it's starting the count from here. First entry long, second entry long, and it's running up against the EMA. I'm not too keen on it. However, I do see if you count this as a new low, it's a first entry short, second entry short, and if it fails, it could go up, but it's also creating a higher low. So It's already congested though, so this is kind of a gamble trade. This is a pretty decent candle that it closed on. You'd have to take it like one tick above and you would have gotten it and gotten filled. But having this experience being red already, I was kind of hesitant to take that trade. It turns out to be a pretty decent trade. Then prices continue moving. I don't see any good setups. It's very, very choppy, even though there's a lot of volume. Because look at all these bars. You can see like, oh, first entry long, second entry long, technically here, third entry long. What does that even mean? Fourth entry long. So, you could count it as one big leg as well. So it was certainly just moving sideways. A little bit harder for me to read today. So prices continue moving. This is where I saw a potential trade, but I didn't take it. It's close to the bottom of this trading range, which I established because you can count this as a new high. You could say it's a first entry long, second entry long. It's a pretty decent candle. It's close to, it has enough room to get to the EMA, but for whatever reason, I just didn't like it at this point because I wanted it to be a more clean touch. I mean, I could have dragged this trend line upwards where my cursor is and said, okay, there's some touches, but then you'd have some breakthroughs here. And I kind of wanted to establish the swings right here as well as a third touch there. So when it didn't quite touch, I wasn't super confident that it would continue going up because it might just turn down and then go back up. So that was a missed trade. See, then prices continue moving up. So I take another trade right here as a second entry short. I thought it was kind of aggressive though. So because I count this as a new low, first entry short comes back. Actually, it goes up. I counted this as a first entry short, and then a second entry short. I thought, okay, second entry short, this is pretty decent. I didn't take into account that I'm already at the high of this trading range. I was kind of pigeonholed, narrow vision. I didn't think it through because these breakouts of this trading range usually fail. But I think at the time, I thought, okay, it broke out here and it broke out higher. It might start making a move up. It's going to bounce off of this thing potentially, but I also didn't account for the EMAs getting crunched up. So to take a short, it would have been better to think it through or wait because it might be better set up as a long. Because if I took it here, which is what I did, you don't have much room to scalp out before you run to the EMA. Even though it's at the top of the trading range, it turns out to be kind of another red trade, as you're going to see. And yeah, it just kind of rockets up. Plus, on the second entry short, I was early when I took it here because I needed this guy to form, but it only ticks one tick below it and immediately fails. So had I just been more patient to see if it actually bounces off the top of this trading range, plus the EMA is coming up, I most likely would have avoided and kept myself safe. But today I was just kind of on the wrong side of a bunch of trades. So this is my last and final trade. So you could consider this as a new low. It's a first entry short, second entry short, and it fails. Then you consider this a first entry short, second entry short again, which is what I did because I also saw two legs up. And I thought, okay, this might have been exhausted. One leg up, two legs up, because this is like showing me kind of like there's a little bit of a struggle because this candle isn't showing. It opened down here, flashed up, did a bunch of things, and closed just above. But then this guy closed right where it opened. So it's indicating it's having trouble. This thing, same thing. It opened here, flashed up, came back down, closed a little bit higher. So it seems it's very apparent it's having trouble pushing upwards, especially right here. Now these two are bullish bars and these two are bearish, but they're still green bars. So here I already thought, okay, well maybe it's going to have a pullback at least to the EMA. So that's where I took my last trade. As you can see right here, I'm riding it through, thinking I'm going to be okay. And then this candle takes me out because when I took it here, you need it to move all the way down here. But once it chops sideways, I considered at the time potentially getting out break even. But to get out break even, I'd pretty much have to take it on this candle. And I'd probably be losing a little bit to commissions. But I waited it out and I paid for it because it flashed up and it took me out. So that was the last trade I took for the day because after just one green trade, and so many red trades, I thought, okay, I am not aligned with the market. It's better that I just not take any more trades. So that's just kind of what I did. I just sat and watched. And then prices continue moving down. There's no real clean setup for me that I can see. I mean, it's just chopping. It's like very, very whipsawy. Even though there's a lot of volume today, it was just prices were fighting. Bulls and bears are definitely fighting a pretty strong battle today that I couldn't quite decipher, and I couldn't get good trend channels or trend lines drawn for them. I mean, you could draw very small, tight channels, which is fine, but then you get a lot of congestion, a lot of consolidation, a lot of ugly stuff happening because it's just bars are sitting right next to each other. You know, you don't get too many of these clean moves up or clean moves down. You just get a lot of move down, chops next to each other. They're just sitting right next to each other. You do get like a move up, but then there was no setup. And so unfortunately left me just sitting on my hands, which is good because I already lost enough today that I thought I should just I'm not on the right mindset, and it's easy to suddenly decide that I'm going to try to make it all back in one trade, and that's usually where I get myself in trouble. So definitely it was a tough day, and I only saw two more setups, but I didn't take them. I saw a second entry short here, so there's a new low, first entry short, second entry short. This candle is pretty decent. It closed below. This bias is going down. I don't have this trend channel drawn yet, but I think I actually did. I actually did from touch here, but I didn't have a third touch here. Had it touched there and then whipped back down, I think I would have, well, if I was still trading, that would have been a trade to take. But as I said, I just kind of hung up my hat at that point in the day. Prices continue moving down. And then I see a second setup right here. New low, first entry short, second entry short. Now this setup is very similar to this setup in that this one could barely make it above the EMA this time, and it flashes right back down. So it's established that the downtrend is going down because I also drew this to touch here, only two touches, and there's probably three touches up here. Even though it didn't quite make it up to the EMA, this is a pretty reasonable trade to have taken. But as I said, I've already called it a day, and then it goes into the close. So had a crazy sell-off during the last hour after a very strong character build-up as well as consolidation. Because you can see from here, it had in the pre-market sold off like crazy, consolidated, rallied a little bit, consolidated, a lot of chop, and then it drops right here, right around 11:30. It just sold off for the last hour and a half. So yeah, it was a red day for me, but it was a learning experience. Got to learn to be more patient, take away what I can from this, and I'll be studying more. So I hope this helps.